Your guidance for recurring income this year, I'll put it in dollar terms, just under $500 million. What's the biggest risk to that target in your view?
Well, it remains our wireless business, and certain aspects of it, particularly the Sun Cellular brand, needs to be addressed. No, the rest of the lines of business, particularly the fixed home enterprises, are going strong, double-digit growth. Smart and Sun Wireless are doing very well. So there are certain aspects of the wireless that we have to watch out for. No?
That's the business part. We'll talk about the issue of the third telco in just a moment. But you also mentioned that you're worried about this rising rate environment. Is that more from the perspective of your balance sheet, or is the concern more to do with how that impacts demand, consumption, the end consumer, if you will, in the country?
More of the latter, David, because from the third telco, I think will probably happen towards the end of the year, would be our best guess. So the impact on the industry will not be significant for 2018. No? So it will be starting 2019.
So when you say it will happen by the end of this year, what does it mean it will happen? That they will choose who the third telco is? Because let's not kid ourselves. This is not a lemonade stand. They can't switch the light on and the third telco is there.
That's correct. I mean, the latest word that according to media reports, DICT secretary was quoted as saying that the bid might be around August. So presumably the government will have to process the bid and so forth. So we don't anticipate that operations will actually start within the year. But I think the identity should happen, we anticipate, by the fourth quarter, no?
And from a longer-term strategy perspective, when do you actually see or estimate you will start feeling the competitive presence of that third player? Are we talking 5 years, 3 years, or next year?
I think difficult to predict, David, no? Because it depends pretty much on who that third telco player would be. If the player is more of a wireless player, then it will take a bit of time because that player will have to build the appropriate infrastructure. If it's more of a business-oriented fixed-line business player, then that player could probably start a bit sooner than the wireless player. So until we know who it is, it's difficult for us to predict when or the consequences to the industry. No?
So let's talk about the things that you can control then. Is that in any way impacting the way you plan ahead, the longer-term appetite for your CapEx and things like that?
It would. Of course, we welcome the entry of the third player, but the identity is very important to us in terms of planning purposes in the medium to long term.
So in other words, have you pared down some of your appetite for investment ahead because of the prospect of a potential third player coming to the market?
Well, in the near term, we have not revised our guidance or our CapEx levels. We're sustaining it at CapEx at 58 billion, and our guidance at 23-24 billion pesos for the year. We may be slightly pessimistic. I think we could do better than that, given the trend for the in the first quarter revenues. No.
Now, one last question on this issue here. I mean, the prospect of another major player in the market isn't new. In fact, there was one a few years ago, and then you just bought them out. I guess the question there is there actually room for a third player in your telco market?
I think there always is. So we're maintaining a watching brief on who this third player is going to be. And, we just have to be vigilant, no? And prepare for the entry of the third player.
Now, just to talk about the macro environment there, yesterday the Bangko Sentral raised interest rates, and it's something that you have brought up as a primary concern ahead, and it affects everyone as well. Is there a preference from your end on how you are likely to tweak the debt on your balance sheet, whether that's currency exposure? Are you looking to refinance some of the debt, the duration of your debt? How are you essentially adjusting for this higher rate environment?
Well, we've maintained the policy of actually capping our debt levels at no more than twice, net debt being twice EBITDA, right? And our foreign currency exposure at no more than, currently it's about 18% of total debt, and we should not exceed 18%. As you know, PLDT has a significant, continues to have a significant a positive forex position arising from our international long distance. So we're comfortable with that kind of forex exposure. So there are the prudential limits we're setting on our debt exposure and on forex exposure. No?
Mr. Pangilinan, one last question. You're also the CEO of First Pacific. I know you don't normally talk about the share price, but I got to ask you this 50+% decline in the share price of First Pacific here in Hong Kong. Do you think the market's missing something here, or do you think the market's got this one on point?
Well, any CEO worth his salt would say, yeah, the shares are extremely undervalued, no? So I think the sentiment that turned against MPIC, Metro Pacific, has affected the share price, and I think First Pacific will take certain steps to address this adverse share price we've seen, no?
Any clue on what those steps might be very quickly?
It is likely that we have to divest certain assets. No?